The Turkiye and Syria earthquake has now passed the 33,000 mark, and chances of finding survivors are fading. It's been almost a week since a 7.8 magnitude and 7.7 earthquake hit Turkiye and Syria. Cities in the southern part of Turkiye and northern Syria have been flattened, leaving millions stranded. Let's get an update from our reporter Dasen Thathia, who is in Antakya, Turkey. Good evening to you, Dasen. Over the last couple of days or so, we've seen so many young children being pulled out of the rubble. Just yesterday, we saw a very small baby being pulled out as well. Some of them have lost their entire families. It's a devastating situation. Just talk us through, details around how these children are able to handle these situations and what needs to happen with them now.
Definitely, and I think so many families have been completely disrupted here as a result of what's happened. I think it's very difficult to understand the magnitude of this disaster unless you are here. The pictures tell one part of the story, but all you have to do is drive down any one street in Antakya, for example. And remember, that's just a microcosm, right? Because you're talking about 10 provinces that are affected, and many of them looking just like this one. Almost all of them completely destroyed. But although you see the buildings, you need to look past the buildings, because every one of those buildings was occupied by families and people that live there that were doing normal things. But now that's all changed. They are out in the street. In many cases, they're living in tents. Some of them are hanging around those sites because they are looking for their loved ones. So I'm going to bring in two elements of what's going on here. One would be, I'm just going to bring in one of the search and rescue team members, because you'll see us sitting around a campfire here tonight. This is what we do every night at this base here with these Gift of the Givers team members that are out every day. It's one of the times that we actually get to have a conversation and debrief. And it's very cold here at night as well, so it's an opportunity for the team members to reflect on what they have done and what they need to do for the next day. And I think I'll bring in now Marcus Butler. Marcus, you were leading one of the teams that went out today for the search and rescue efforts, and I think lots of people are asking, how do you manage that process? Because when you go out, it's easy to get overwhelmed. You see disaster everywhere, you see rubble everywhere, you see people crying, you see people hanging around these sites. Talk to me about the strategy that you're employing as part of the team to ensure that you and the rest of the members get as much done as possible constructively.
Jason, is it all about strategic preparedness when we discuss and how we mitigate the situation that we are going forward? So what we do in the morning is we have planning sessions, and we brief each other on to say we're going out as a team, we work as a team. But out there is a different picture that, as you have discussed to the viewers, that is a different, it's totally devastating out there. So what we do is we plan strategically to respond to an operation. That's why we call it the integrated rescue component system. So we integrated with other teams that are on the ground, that knows the area well. So we have latched on to the Turkish team, so that we work with the Turkish team, so that we know where we focus on specific areas. So that we go there, we do the search and rescue, we do body recovering, we give some closures to families that are sitting on the site. As you have mentioned, these people are sitting there, they're waiting for miracles. They are, and it's overwhelming. If you can see what the Turkish community has done for us as Gift of the Givers. We go out there, we work long hours, they provide us with food, water, in the midst of devastation.
They're very hospitable. And I want to just take you quickly to take you back to that scene today that we were at together, where there was a possibility of survivors. That was a very emotionally charged scene that you were at. Just talk to me about what was happening there. I know that some of the high-tech equipment that you use was employed there.
Yeah, it was very emotional, because you could see the emotions of the families when the life locators picked up some sounds in the pancake collapse. So there was hope for that, and when that hope faded, it became very emotional. You can see the tears in people's eyes, and the second scene that we went to was when we removed those people. They already have made peace with it, but it was so emotional for them to see their loved ones being dragged out of the rubble, and it's very emotional. So what we have done is that we at least we're doing search and rescue. It's not every day that we go out and find miracles, you know. And we are so at advanced stage of, we are mostly doing body recovery, you know.
Yeah.
Those that would have survived, we pray for them. It's miracles that do happen, but you know, we have to be realistic now at this advanced stage of the devastation that we might not find possible survivors. Those that are finding possible survivors, we pray for that and we hope that we find survivors.
Yeah.
But now we are living with the reality that is currently happening now. As you can see, the devastation, and and on a daily basis we experience the aftershocks that are happening during the course. So that makes the rescue efforts so much dangerous, because now buildings are shifting.
Yes.
And it makes it difficult for us to rescuers to go in there and start digging amongst the rubble for people and loved ones.
Marcus, I think I can testify to that, because just last night we were sitting here in this exact spot and we felt a tremor that lasted about 7 seconds. Today there was also a scare while we were out there. But let me use this opportunity to bring in Dr. Fatima Hendricks here. Doctor, let's talk about the implications. On the one side, we have search and rescue, yes. But beyond this, I think I touched on it in my intro, you have people that are completely removed from the normal environment that they're in. We're also not having many conversations about the children, about the disabled, about the elderly. Talk to me about the impact that you believe they are experiencing right now.
Thank you so much for that really powerful question. I think it really is a moment of reflection, talking to the most vulnerable of our people, women, children, and people with disability. As an occupational therapist, we recognize two important parts here: the physical impact as well as the mental impact. But there's a very important third pillar that holds this together, which is occupations, the things that people do every single day, that has been mammothly impacted and disrupted, and that's what we call occupational disruption. Everything that people do has now stopped, changed radically. And this is part of the challenge that we face in terms of thinking about, here's a person with a disability. How did they get out of the building? They were the most vulnerable of people. So we have two categories of people with disability: those that were disabled, that were in these buildings, that couldn't get out, and people that are now newly disabled, right? And so those are, that really talks to a whole different category of people experiencing occupational disruptions to a very, very significant extent. And people who are often ignored in the story and the storytelling. And so that's something that we really need to focus on. The other part of the story is really that it is not, for some people, the first displacement that they've experienced. People have moved across from really vulnerable areas, for example, Syria. They've lost homes in, homes that were bomb-shelled. They've moved across. They might have experienced displacement here as being refugees, and now rebuilding their lives and being shattered through this earthquake. So the extent of intergenerational, really trauma that we're talking to is something that really is going to require long-term intervention, and really us thinking collectively as a global community, how we're going to engage with these issues of displacement.
Doctor, that leads me to my next and last question about what then are the long-term implications. I understand that everyone, rightfully so, is consumed with the immediate, the search and rescue and the recoveries, and people want to bury their loved ones, and they're desperate for that. But then after that, there's life after the tents and after the funerals and after the aid disappears. How difficult is it for them to readjust with such massive loss?
It's really a powerful question that you raise, because you talk about life after, but it's not life after, it's life during these, because we live through the grieving, we live through all these episodes, all these experiences that we carry with us. And so if we look at even, the interruption of schooling and the re-establishing of schooling, the re-establishment of housing, where people are now going to live, the re-establishment of work and earning an income. So there are really severe areas that are going to require the intentional collective effort of the international community as well as the local community to build appetite for investment in resources to really assist with long-term interventions. There's a lot of aid coming now around crisis management, but what is really going to be required is how we rebuild not just Turkey, but the often forgotten Syria and other areas that have been impacted. And I think we really have to build narratives around what is happening elsewhere as well, because this is a collective response that's required.
Much appreciated, Dr. Fatima Hendricks there, one of my guests here. And, this also is a reflection of the type of team that has been sent here to Turkey by the Gift of the Givers. It's a very diverse team. It's not just the search and rescue members that we're talking about medics, we're talking about other health professionals, and all of them together are trying to offer a response to this country during this very, very stressful and devastating time.
Not too long ago, we heard that there was a dire need for items such as generators, blankets and disposable toilets. Have those items started arriving in Turkey? Also, what are some of the other necessities that are desperately needed right now, besides medical staff, besides people on the scene helping to recover bodies or people? What are some of those items that are still desperately needed?
Abigail, from the people that we've spoken to, and we've spoken to a number of people across the city, we've had a mixed reaction. So some of these people are telling us that they have the tents. In some cases, we've seen generators, we've seen the water, we've seen the fruit and vegetables that they have. But in other cases, we've received complaints where they say they don't have any. Just today, we were in one part of town where a gentleman was saying to us that after the earthquake, he and the other neighbors that were fortunate enough to escape had to then find their own means. There's what looks like a park across the road, and they had to put up their own makeshift tents, and they are still complaining that they haven't received the aid that they want. Because the initial response, you would remember, would come from this government and this disaster management agency. And if I had to be frank, the sentiment that we're getting from people is that didn't happen fast enough. But then, to be fair, if you look at the magnitude and the scale of the disaster, one wonders which disaster management agency in which country would have been able to respond fast enough.
Indeed, Dasen, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that update. That was our eNCA reporter, Dasen Thathia, who is in Antakya, Turkey. He's just chatting there to an occupational therapist and also a member of the Gift of the Givers. Devastation, complete devastation taking place there and in Syria as well.